Thanks for tuning in today. I'm John Holmes with Holmes Hobbies, and I get to play with toys. This is the Wraith 1.9, and we are going to do another video on modifications. So my favorite part of every single day is that I get to play with toys for a living, and of course the electronics that go into those toys. I have really been enjoying this Wraith 1.9 rig, and I'm going to continue with the upgrades. Now, I have already installed a Crawlmaster Pro 16 turn motor, and like I said in the previous video, I really want to install a Crawlmaster Magnum, which we should have a video released on that to tell you what the differences are on a Magnum motor. And I just couldn't help myself. I am going to install this 13 turn Magnum of the Crawlmaster variant today. I'm also going to install a BRXL ESC, and this is kind of an old one that I've been having laying around, just one of my personals. And probably going to install these link risers as well from Superstition Machine Works. This is the upper link mount riser, and what this does is let us mount our upper links at the chassis a little bit higher, or lower possibly. I haven't actually installed them yet. And that allows us to tune our anti-squat on the rig. And the anti-squat is very important when you are going up or down an obstacle. Your anti-squat on the front is important when you're going down, and the anti-squat on the rear is important when you're going up. If you have too much anti-squat, the rear suspension just locks out. If you have too little anti-squat, the rear suspension will sag in and you don't get as much traction. So what this would allow us to do is to tune our anti-squat a little bit better. So looking forward to that as well. Now, really the next thing for me to do at this point is to start taking apart the rig, and then I'm going to do the soldering. We're not going to cover much of the actual soldering work in depth today because we have other videos that cover that. So I'm going to just get right down to it. First, we start off by taking off the skid plate with a 2mm driver. All right, we're middle step here. I have the skid plate off and I have the transmission out-ish. At this point, I have the rig disassembled enough to switch some parts out. I had to take off the pan hard bar to get to where I could take off the screws, which are accessible from the bottom of, where'd it go? Here we go. There's the top of our receiver box. So you can see these really long standoffs. Those come in from the bottom. So I had to get in there, take that out, take out the skid plate, take out 2 screws on the side of the boat sides, or whatever you want to call them. And that's where the ESC is mounted to a tray. And now we can actually swap out our parts. So let's do it. It's like that scene in The Big Lebowski with the scissors. Boop. All right, I have gotten all of the upgrades installed and it's time to go crawl, which is the best part of my job. Now, as we talked about in the last video, I switched out the tires and the rims already. We added the Curry anti-rock bar in the back to help with the torque twist, and I switched out my Crawlmaster Pro 16 turn for the Crawlmaster Magnum 13 turn, which is a little faster. It has a very large rotor, which you can see in our video, which I'll link down below, describing how the Magnums are different than a normal motor. And I also put in a BRXL ESC because it has much better low speed control than the stock ESC. However, after I switched that out, I was having just a terrible time with the low speed control still, which is not normal for this system. Found out that the stock radio was giving me fits. I tried switching it from 50% throttle to 100% throttle on the stock radio. I tried switching that little expo knob back and forth, and it was just glitchy. The throttle wasn't matching what I was doing. It was lurching on me. It was just acting up. So I went ahead and switched out to a GT3C. It's hacked, but it pretty much still acts like a GT3C. And now our low speed control is where we would expect it, which is nice and smooth, about as slow as we can want to start up, although there's still a little hitch in the drivetrain somewhere. So I'm gonna probably have to take that apart and figure it out. You know, you can see a little like, that's not me, that is something in the drivetrain. Now it does use 32 pitch gears, which aren't honestly the smoothest. You can actually see that's like each tooth rolling around. So I need to either get my pinion mesh a little bit better, or it could be actually in the axles, because it's running smooth half the time and then half the time it's a little lurchy. So there's something in the drivetrain, but we are going to ignore that for now because it's still smooth enough to crawl with once it's loaded down, and it has a lot more torque than it did before with this Magnum, and also more wheel speed. Well, let's take a look at this wheel speed. Just roll right into it. Definitely faster, and look how much torque it has when I stop. Boop, it just stops. It's 100% drag brake, but that Magnum motor just has massive, massive torque and huge drag brake. Huge drag brake. So what we're gonna do is just kind of crawl around, have some fun. But with this Magnum, once it hits a smooth part in the drivetrain, at least right now, all the low speed control that I could ask for the wheel speed, you know, it's still a little catchy. So yeah, I'll have to take that drivetrain apart. But the Magnum is also not quite as smooth as a regular Crawlmaster, and maybe that is also what I'm envisioning in my mind. There's a lot of room for me to gear this rig down as well. It has a 13-tooth pinion, and whatever 4-to-1 ratio is at the spur, I forget, doesn't really matter. So I could drop that pinion down to say an 11-tooth or 10-tooth and get better startup, which is what I would always recommend. Volt up, gear down, or use a faster motor and gear down versus trying to get wheel speed through tall gearing. That's been my motto for 13 years now, is volt up, gear down. But with the advent of brushless motors, we could also say KV up, gear down, and you get the same effect. I'm already running 3S LiPo, so we do have a high enough voltage to really take advantage of motor speed. Now let's see if we can showcase how well this thing handles with the Curry. Now the steering servo is it's still borderline. I'm still running this stock steering servo. It's not quite giving me the throw that I would like under load, but we'll deal with it. And just, oh yeah, so predictable with that anti-sway bar on it. And just a little jerky, Oh yeah, so predictable. This rig is a good time to drive. It's good. Might not be the most capable. It's got a big old body and little old tires, but you know, I've gone through that phase of having capable rigs, and to tell you the truth, it gets to a point to where the rigs are just too capable. And then it's not as fun to drive anymore. Once the rig is doing all the work for you, you know, especially if your terrain is not changing, if you're not constantly upgrading your terrain at the same time, so to speak, it just gets boring to me. And I've been crawling since 2002, which makes 17 years now. So I've been able, you know, I've spent enough time that I've gone the full cycle of being bored with stuff and then having to kind of pull back and really think about, why do I like crawling? What makes crawling fun? I do like building the rigs, although honestly, working on this Wraith was a little frustrating just because it's hard to get to all the parts. But I do like wrenching, and I really like driving. I don't like the rigs being so capable that it does all the work for me. And maybe that's honestly why I still don't like the way that the Hobbywing axe drives, is that it's honestly doing the work for me. And I want to have this, say, I'm under load, I'm caught up, I want to say, give me more throttle, instead of having the ESC give more throttle and do the work for me. I want to have a challenge. I want something to happen. I just don't want to set cruise control and have the rig hit all the lines super easy. So having the most capable rig isn't up my alley, unless I'm in a competition, but that's not in a competition right now, except for trying to hit a decent line right now. Geez, I must be hanging up an axle underneath because I'm not really looking. Hey, look at that. Hanging up the axle, isn't it? Yeah, so let's take a slightly different line. Let's do what crawling is all about and plan our lines and have that low speed control and throttle control that it requires. Although, hey, if you're into having super capable rigs, let me know. If you like that axe system, there's nothing wrong with that by any means. This is just my personal preference. It's just what I like in my rigs, is to be challenged. I want to have that challenge, but not everybody does. If you're learning, maybe it's a little too much and you want it to be a little easier for you. So that's when upgrading your rig to the nth degree comes into play. That's when getting a system that maybe helps you out with your throttle control. I can see that. I just want to make sure that people are aware. That people are aware that back in my day, we had to go uphill both ways to the hobby shop, buy 2 kits, throw everything away from both of those kits, except for a couple of plastic parts, and then buy upgrades for those. And then we still had to build our own chassis and take shocks from yet another rig to try to get this crawler thing going. So, we've come such a long way in the market that it's easy for me to sit back and be an old man about it. Get off my lawn with your easy to drive rigs. But again, that's just me. I like doing it for the fun that I have doing it, and everybody has different fun. And maybe that is the beauty of the rock crawling market, is that there's so many different ways to have fun. I obviously like driving, I like building. I don't want my rigs doing all the work for me, so I kind of keep that middle of the road capability on the rigs. But there's the modeling aspect. We could be putting little figures in there, get it super scale, throw a bunch of scale accessories on there, maybe make it look like a full-size rigs that we have, except for the Wraith is modeled after a full-size rig, but maybe you want to throw something different. Maybe not on this particular one because the Wraith body's kind of stuck on there, but you could get an SCX-10 and build it up to be your full-size rig and really get into the modeling aspect. There's just so many different things in the crawling that you can do and have fun. So maybe that's the beauty of it, that we should all just have fun and make sure that we do what we want to have fun. And what I'm doing is what I love to do: go out, crawl, do some reviews for y'all because y'all like that, and crawl for me because I like that, right? So I hope this helped you out. If you do have any more questions, let me know in the comments. If there's something on this rig that I did not cover that you want to see in the future, let me know in the comments as well. But what I'm going to keep doing is crawling this afternoon. So hope it helps out. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good day.